Seplat Energy says it has not received any official notification from the federal government reversing its proposed acquisition of the entire share capital of Mobil Producing Nigeria Unlimited. According to a statement issued by its chief financial officer, Emeka Onwuka, the company is also seeking clarification from authorities regarding the claims that President Muhammadu Buhari, who doubles as the Minister of Petroleum Resources, had withdrawn his ministerial approval for the deal. It was earlier reported that Buhari had reversed his authorization of the acquisition of the entire share capital of MPNU by Seplat Energy Offshore Limited. Joining us now to speak on this controversy is an energy and natural resources lawyer, Gbite Adeniji. Welcome to Newsday, and thank you for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
All right. Well, with the intro, we know that there's quite a bit of controversy surrounding this acquisition. Can you tell us what is the way forward in order to make sure that all sides see an amicable agreement?
Well, from what's in the public domain, the president has rescinded his previous decision. We've heard from the chief regulator stating that the matter is in the regulatory space. And surely, I believe that's correct, because the NUPRC basically handles the regulatory process around consent applications. What's apparent is that the initial consent application was denied on the basis that the procedure for applications for consents was not complied with, right, by MPNU. I suppose the best way forward would be for MPNU to reapply in compliance with the procedure. I'm not sure that the windows is ultimately closed.
I'd like you to give us your own interpretation of the botched Seplat Energy's acquisition of Mobil Producing Nigeria Unlimited from ExxonMobil Corporation. What do you think went wrong?
I think it was rather unfortunate, really, that did not happen the way it did. It seemed to me, from my own experience of the process around consents, ministerial consents for assignments of petroleum interests, that there were very strong opposing forces contending around this transaction. Clearly, there was a desire by ExxonMobil to exit, and clearly there was also a very strongly held position by the National Oil Company, NNPC Limited, to succeed into those assets. So the regulatory system basically just got caught between the two interests that were contending for those assets. It was unfortunate that the president approved, then reversed his position around this application, and then to see also that also in the public space now, I also saw that the Minister of State also has queried the regulator. What I see clearly is that everyone is testing a new legislation, the PIA. That's basically what it is. What normally should have happened is if the president had an advisor on petroleum, a special advisor on petroleum, which is typically a senior person with experience around these matters, he would have been protected from the embarrassment that this whole process put him through, because that would have been good filtration that would have basically helped him hold his hand away from this whole series of events. Because, we must remember, NNPC has gone to court and also filed for arbitration around this matter. So it would have been a very convenient excuse for the president to say, well, sorry, I don't want to touch this until this court process is over, because then the court will now rule one way or the other. That wasn't done. The president also has an entire machinery within the Ministry of Justice that could have advised him on the matter. And I'm not sure to the extent to which assistance was sought from that system, from the Office of the Attorney General. Might have given a bit more understanding around the issues. But be that as it may, it's a very embarrassing situation for the president and for the country. You asked me earlier on, what's the way forward? Best way forward would be to wait for the outcome, await the outcome of the arbitration between NNPC and ExxonMobil or MPNU on this matter. One notes also that the NUPRC recommended that the application be rejected on the basis that the procedure was not followed. Okay, so maybe once that whole case is over, there might be an opportunity, if the dice rolls in favor of MPNU, to apply properly according to the procedure set out within the law. Because the law is very clear. You must apply through the regulator.
Mr. Adeniji, let me just interrupt you. Let me just interrupt you very briefly. The Akwa Ibom State government also believes that ExxonMobil cannot lay off its assets without recourse to the state hosting them. How valid is this legally?
No, the Constitution is very clear that matters relating to the petroleum are matters within federal authority, right? So anyone can exit any asset without recourse to a state government. What's more important is that the exiting party complies, right, with the requirements of the law. The most obvious requirement that might affect or touch and concern the state would be environmental issues. And there's more than enough laws around that that the regulatory system can oversee to ensure that there is compliance. A state government cannot hold any asset owner hostage. I think that's pushing it a bit.
All right, Mr. Adeniji. Well, some are saying that Nigeria might be walking a course of killing its indigenous initiatives and sending the wrong signal to the international community and others who might be seeking to invest. What is your take?
Honestly, I would have preferred for there to be a very clear policy statement by the Minister of Petroleum Resources. Actually, that's the president. Okay, or at least his deputy, the Minister of State, around what the policy of the state is on the matter of divestments of assets by IOCs. Is the state in favor or not? If it is not, then of course the whole world will know that we will need to bother engaging with any IOC in trying to acquire the assets, because it costs a lot of money to go through this process of acquiring assets. You have to do due diligence, technical, commercial, legal, and all that. It costs millions of dollars. And also, basically, you have to convince, your people, a lot of stakeholders within your company as to whether or not you want to go ahead. So, if the policy is known and it's clear and it's against divestments, then the world knows. If it's for divestments, then of course we also know. But it's just not good enough for the state, which is the Nigerian government, to keep quiet, right? And then for its agencies basically to be running riot. which is basically what appeared to have happened in this case, really. There needed to have been an intervention very early in the process that would have made this very smooth and would have avoided this whole split embarrassment. And dare I say, and it's very important I mention this too, NNPC is fully within its rights to attempt to preempt. Whether it will succeed legally is a completely different issue, right? But it is a partner to ExxonMobil, right?
Mr. Adeniji.
For whatever it's worth, well, if you just allow me, please, just allow me a second. It's because very important. We're trying to educate the public here, right? It has the aspirations to grow its assets. That's fine. But whether its position is founded within the law or not, well, we'll know before long when the court or whether the arbitrator rules for or against. So that's fine. But on the pure regulatory issue of consent, right, that, right, is something that everyone must go through when you're acquiring whether an asset directly or whether you're acquiring an interest in a company that owns an asset. You must go for consent, definitely. And I think that's been done, just that clearly it appeared that they did not go through the proper channels because for what I see, they went through the office of the minister. And normally you're meant to go through the office of the regulator because the regulator has a role to basically undertake or due diligence around the transaction to be sure that the requirements of the law are met, which is basically technically and financially competent. Are you acceptable to the state? And then also issues of compliance with
Mr. Adeniji, permit me to interject at this point.
Critical issues.
Yeah, I wanted to find out from you. Do you think if we had the role of the Minister of Petroleum Resources being designated to a separate individual from the president, all this would have been averted? Briefly.
Not necessarily. It's obviously the most ideal thing for there to be somebody else acting as a minister beyond the president. Okay, because what we've seen, and I tell you very clearly, the mischief around the president being a minister, is that it definitely leads to discipline within the system. Because I've experienced it personally in the point in my career, where I've seen where agencies go directly to the president, bypassing his deputy, who actually is vested to act on his behalf and supervise the system. So you have a parallel movement. And it doesn't allow for discipline, really. It basically leads for a more chaotic process. And I really think going forward, it must stop. Now, if you have an individual, right, in charge, who allows this to happen, then surely what should happen is you fire him, right, for screwing up, for allowing this to happen, because you're supposed to be running and supervising the system competently. The law is very clear as to where power and authority lies, right, whether on the policy side, on the commercial side, on the regulatory side. That's why the petroleum reforms were done. So the regulator must do its work as a regulator. It must be allowed to do its work. And I'm very pleased that the regulator stood up, right, to basically insist, right, that this matter is a regulatory issue. So we don't want to see this happening again, really, because I have no doubt in my mind it's done a fair amount of damage to the country. And some remedial work needs to be done to give some
Energy and Natural Resources lawyer, Gbite Adeniji, thank you so much. We do appreciate your insight on New State.